You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Reaching all the way back to 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition. Here is your host of Fate Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening and welcome to Fate Magazine Radio. I am Kat Hobson. I'm your host, and I'm very excited because this is my very first Fate Radio show. I am honored to have been selected to host this. I know the history. I know the people who have gone before me. I hope to be at least as good, and I'm always striving to be a little better than the average bear, so we'll see how this rolls. I am fortunate enough tonight to be hosting two men, both of whom are brilliant at what they do. Our first guest tonight is going to be Jock Brocas, an evidential spiritual medium and the author of several books. He writes with passionate and in-depth knowledge, and I'm going to tell you that you've got to check him out on Amazon. His Amazon authors page is astounding. His books are written with one common goal, which is to enlighten and teach spiritual lessons of love, compassion, and forgiveness. And he is recognized as an accurate evidential medium. He has dedicated his later years to his own spiritual development and the professional development of his mediumship. And he is bringing other people along with him. As a proponent of many different disciplines, these skills have culminated into developing unique perspectives on spirituality and spiritual life, which I think that you will find in his writings. Jock teaches regularly and works tirelessly to help those developing on a spiritual path. And I have to say that I'm very fortunate because I have had the opportunity to read Deadly Departed, which the do's, don'ts, and dangers of afterlife communication. Jock, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Hello.
To spend some time with you here.
There we go. Hello.
And thank you for the introduction. I think it was a little bit more than I expected. I'm not all that. I'm, just a normal guy.
Well, you're a normal guy, but you have some fantastic gifts, and you have a lot of experience that you share very graciously and well.
I believe knowledge is there to be shared, not to be harboured and kept under lock and key. And if it betters humanity, then so be it that we openly and willingly give it. And at the same time, that knowledge is there to keep people safe as well and keep them on a path that perhaps doesn't cause them any suffering later on in life. And that's the kind of, I don't like suffering. I don't like anybody to suffer. And so I try to emulate as much as possible the beliefs of love, forgiveness, and compassion. Not always, it's the easiest thing to say, but the hardest thing to do, Kat, as you probably know. But I'm delighted to be with you tonight. I'm delighted to chat with you and to talk about my book.
Well, when I was first going through and just browsing through your table of contents, I was fascinated. This is not a book that can really be covered effectively in a 1-hour show. I would like to know what specifically drew you to write this particular type of book.
Do you know, that's a really, really good question, and probably is one that nobody's asked me before. They asked me so many other different questions about demonology and the dark side that nobody's ever really said, why did you write it? And it goes back, I think, Kat, to some of the cases and some of the things that I've been involved in terms of people who have maybe found themselves out of sorts or perhaps dabbling in things they maybe shouldn't have landed on my doorstep, not because I searched for them or looked for them, but because they were probably guided to me by a higher power And so when I saw the suffering that people were going through, when you have someone almost, no matter if they're a medium, a lay person, a religious person, a family member, when they're in fear or when they don't understand what's happening to them and things in their life are going wrong, that to me is a form of suffering, and it's something I don't like to see in anyone. And there was a great, I'm sure you've heard of Wayne Dyer. I mean, everybody in spiritual life has heard of Wayne Dyer. But Wayne Dyer, I remember one of his books, and one of his favourite sayings was a spiritual solution to every problem. And I really, really believe that. And there was more and more people that were developing as mediums, and even people outside of mediumship, that were getting themselves into problems, if you like, and things were affecting them in their everyday life. And what I wanted to do was just share the knowledge and the experience that I developed over many years, and still do. I don't claim to be a be-all and end-all and know everything, but what I want to do is to share the wisdom and the knowledge that I have, in the hope that it reduces suffering in some way, and that it makes people awareness. I've got to, when I teach, I always tell people, in order to change anything in your life, there has to become a stage of awareness. And you can be aware of something, but if you don't take action upon it, then it will never change. So awareness and action are two facets that are needed. So I wanted to bring those two elements into the book, is to make people aware of the dangers that lurk within the afterlife, and to give them empowerment to recognize their own divine authority, so that it reduces that aspect of suffering for the individual, but also helps the professional to identify particular issues or particular problems, and also help to navigate the developing individual through perhaps a tumultuous sea of negativity. Not everybody in life is going to face demonic interference or, obsessive spirits, and that's fantastic. But for all those people that say it doesn't exist or it will never happen, you have to really have some compassion for what about the people that it has happened to? What about the woman who's crying her eyes out because her child is having the terrors, or has gone into an old home? And I'm sure there's great paranormal investigation teams, but there's also bad paranormal investigation teams that cause more problems. And there's great mediums, and there's bad mediums, and there's uneducated people. And oftentimes, even when a paranormal team goes in, they might go in without a medium. They go in with, lots of different cameras, equipment, and they can often leave a trail of destruction behind them because they're ill-prepared and they don't have the knowledge. And so all this culminates into suffering for the person. So I have a great saying that I love, you might not believe in gravity because you can't see it, but it won't stop you falling out of a tree or tripping and falling, whether you believe it or not. And it's the same thing. You might not believe that fire will hurt you, but you put your hand in it, you're going to get burned.
That was one of my favorite lines through your book, The Gravity, because you don't have to. You don't have to believe in demonic activity, but you know what? It believes in you, and it knows the rules.
Here's the really interesting thing that I think is, and I want to take away, let's take away demon, or even the names of demons, because inherently a name has an energetic vibration, has a power. But let's understand polar opposites here. In order to know light, we have to understand darkness. In order to know pain, we have to understand health. So there is a polar opposite in everything. If you are overweight, you're going to lose weight. If you're unhealthy, you're going to try and there's a polar opposite. So in this life, it stands to reason that polar opposite exists not only in the spiritual plane, but in the material plane, and it cohabitates, it intermingles, and there's different, perhaps, entrances or portals or doorways that they can go in and out of and stuff. And you know, if we take away the name demon and then we just understand it as a malevolent force, you don't have to believe in demons, but you have to recognize that there's a malevolent force in the world. I mean, you only just need to look around you. We've got a lot of beautiful things in the world. We've got a lot of good in the world, but we have a lot of evil in the world too. And so whether a medium believes in evil or not, it doesn't stop it existing. But I would rather be aware, and I would rather be ready, because unfortunately I do get, I don't work with paranormal teams as such. There's a few people that I trust. Maybe in the future, if I get the right people, I would do. But I do get cases where people are suffering, and they're suffering through, and I'm just going to say ignorance, dabbling with Ouija boards. Yes, the Ouija board is not inherently dangerous, but it's the intention behind something, and it's the intention, it's the signature of the communication. It is the need and the desire to want to communicate. The minute, and this is the other thing and I want to say, even people when they're using EVP and things like that, there's great researchers that use it very successfully, but there's also that opportunity where malevolent spirits can, they know more than we do, I'm sure, and you're aware of that, Kat. They can read you like a book, and they can give you what you want. So the only real way to really recognize their signature is through your own divine authority and your discernment. And that's not something you learn from a book, nor is it something you can learn from me. It is something that you develop over the years of your own spiritual growth. And so, when people are subjugated by these negative beings or these negative energies, it causes a lot of suffering. And you may not have come across it, but there are people who do, and they suffer needlessly. And a lot of it's ignorance. So what I want to try and do is just offer another hypothesis, make you think, sow a seed within you that makes you consider something else, that you might take some of that knowledge and make it work for you. Give it some power, give it some positive vibes, and become more aware.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to note that a lot of times you had mentioned the fear stemming from fear, and being ignorant of the situation. That was one thing when I was first reading the book. It kind of took me aback because I thought, well, fear and ignorance, really? But as I went on to read your more detailed explanation through there, it was accurate, because fear grows from ignorance. If you're not educated about what you're walking in to deal with, or if your client, the person who's experiencing this, only knows the fear side, and
absolutely, and
only thinks that anything that looks like it might be a bit scary is malevolent, then that fear is going to grow exponentially until it can be dealt with. And and people keep telling them, oh, well, this is so horrible, right? So they have to get the right people to interact with them, to help them. And that is a very personal thing.
It's very personal, and also, and I'm going to say something, and I hope I don't get shot down. Pardon the pun. Get shot down and played by all these religious people, but religion plays a massive part in building our fear. And where I think that we have a great secular divide and a great divide in things is we have to bring in the parapsychological aspect, or if you like, the scientific aspect of things, along with the spiritual, to be able to come to a, pardon the pun, a happy medium, really, and being able to give people knowledge. Because